Welcome to another episode of Views from the Field. And we're very fortunate to have with us this week a dear friend and colleague, and somebody I think you will get to enjoy to know. And joy is the key word. Constance Porazka. Welcome, Connie.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I've been participating in these Sunday meetings for so long, so I'm really honored to be a guest teacher today.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. And you just guided us in an opening meditation and ended that meditation, inviting us into a reflection. I'm wondering if you could share that reflection for everybody, because I think it's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Allan. Just really a simple reflection in that, when you go out in the world, before you begin anything, before you begin a project, but certainly whenever you come together, with another person, another human being, to pause there and take note of that you're not in your headspace. You're not thinking about what is there to do next. You're not thinking about what is this person going to say. You just bridge that distance and, settle into your heart. And from there, you look in their eyes, you're fully present, and, then conversations can really begin and human interactions. So.
Yeah, very beautiful. So I'd like to introduce you a little bit to everybody who doesn't know you. You're going to talk a lot, I believe, today about community, where you reside in Wichita, Kansas, and have developed mindfulness teachings and trainings and retreats to joy for the community of Wichita, and in a really heartfelt, community-focused kind of way. So, having struggled for 20 plus years in a corporate job and a mental health diagnosis, and then you stated that you became curious about looking inward and discovered you could create exactly the life that you wanted to live. So we'll look forward to hearing a little bit about that. And you began to live from your heart and how that changed everything. So this heart-centered practice, this heartfelt way of living, seems to be a constant theme that's running through. And you have become passionate about teaching joy and mindfulness to others so that they can further their awareness and their own inward journey. So, as a native Wichitan, somebody from Wichita, Kansas in the US, did you begin there? Were you born in Wichita?
Yes, I am native to Wichita, and it's kind of like I'm living a fairy tale here, Allan. Wichita is not a little village in Kansas. So just wanted to kind of give you, geographically, we're in the heart, really, of the USA, the heart of the heartland. And it's 530,000 people who live here in Wichita with me. But it's the perfect right size that you almost feel like you could give Wichita a hug, because we are all so interrelated and connected, in that if you really want to do something in Wichita, you can make it here, because somebody knows somebody who, can propel you on. And people are very open to having a cup of coffee together and trading notes. So I am a native Wichitan, and I'm proud of it. Sorry, I kind of extended your question.
You are a heart that was born into the heart of the heartland.
Yes.
So it's no wonder that we're heart focused in today's session, and because
how could we be anything else?
You're heart focused in your life and what you bring to your community.
I am.
Yeah. So were there other mindfulness teachers of meditation in Wichita prior to your bringing it to the community?
Well, and that's funny that you would ask that question, Allan, because I remember my very first encounter with mindfulness was I'd done, exploring on my own, and I was very interested since 2009. And then I went to Navigating Life's Challenges. If you remember that, Allan, Joshua Tree.
When weren't you at Navigating Life's Challenges?
Yeah,
it's the more appropriate question.
I love Joshua Tree and Allan too. So, but being there the very first time, I'm going back to the first time, Allan. And when I left that, I was on fire, and I knew this was my path, and that everybody around me needed to be, exposed to MBSR and mindfulness as well. So I'm very enthusiastic, and I can't help myself. So I came back to Wichitan, and I thought, this is it. And then I realized I'm all alone doing this. There was not another MBSR teacher. So what do? I find other people in the community who are meditating, and in different areas, a Catholic nun who had studied compassion, a Zen Buddhist, somebody at Unity Church. And so I made friends with these people. I did an outreach, and for 4 years, I did a community meditation once a month in the pyramid. And so the Reardon Clinic pyramid can hold 100 people. It's a bright white pyramid. So we did that monthly, and it was a very good sharing of different meditation styles with different people. And then, did I lose the question, Allan? Bring me back. What did I?
No, this is where we are. And I think this might be an opportunity for you to show the video that you've put together so we could all get a visual view of the pyramid and Wichita and the community. And then we'll come back around to a little bit about.
I would love that. Okay. And I'll just preface it that one of the groups that I belong to, there are a lot of students who come, and it's for entrepreneurs. So they're learning and, perfecting their craft. So this young gentleman who's a student at Wichita State University wanted to try out some video. And I said, where could I use a video? And this was shortly after Allan had invited me to be a guest teacher. So I thought, maybe you haven't spent, quite a bit of time in Wichita. So this will be your introduction, if you would like. So let me switch screens. I'm Constance, and you see me just about every Wednesday morning. I teach peace and I teach joy. Mindfulness are the skills and techniques to help you get your own inner peace and joy. And so neurotypical and normal, no more. We don't even know what that is anymore. So I wanted to make you aware of something that I'm offering. My company is Retreat to Joy, and that just means going inside to find your own inner joy and peace. And now in these times, I teach mindfulness, but this room, we are all teachers. When we come together on Wednesday mornings and show up, we're teaching each other. And as Brandy said, we need to come together kind with our best intentions. So I have on my Retreat to Joy Facebook page, Inner Entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur, a business owner, it's a roller coaster ride. And there are ups and downs, but we can be here for each other. Mental illness is the bubonic plague of our time. And we don't always need a therapist, we don't need a psychiatrist or a doctor. Sometimes we need another kind human to talk with us, to encourage us, and maybe have that extra cup of coffee during the week. So thank you. I have brochures in the back. There's no charge for Inner Entrepreneur. It's on the Facebook page. And I'm glad to be here every Wednesday morning with my community here. Thank you. When you start to increase your awareness, you find out all kinds of things that are going on inside of you. And as you grow, you pay more attention to what's going on outside. And it's not a world war or another country. Right now we're in downtown Wichita. We're on 2nd Street. A lot of people pass by here on the way to work without noticing that human beings sleep on the street and they have nothing at all. Being saved is not coming from the outside. We can't rely on government and any institutions and nonprofits. We have to start with ourselves and being there for others. It starts right here in Wichita. So this is Wichita. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for allowing me to present Wichita to you. We're in the heart of the heartland, and that's what we want to spread as a community. really increasing mental wellness. And we do that by working together. Right now we're at the Keeper of the Plains, part of our Native American heritage in Wichita. And we can't forget where we come from, what brought us here, but we have the most fantastic future ahead when really we're all working together. This time it's coming from the people. Hi, this is the Paxton Blessing Box. And the whole philosophy there is take a blessing when you need one, share a blessing when you can. Paxton is a real live person. And when he was a boy, he went to his mom, Maggie Ballard, and he said, "Mom, I don't like to see anybody in my neighborhood hungry." And so they created Paxton Blessing Boxes, and it's easy to participate. Everybody can do something. So when you're at the store and you find a sale, I always pick up two. So I can leave something in the blessing box and take something home. You can find so many chances in your own backyard to be of service and to help out. Paxton's Blessing Box. Still in my backyard of Wichita, and this is the Fresh Air Baby Camp. And how it started out in the 20s, a group of very philanthropists and just concerned mothers and women started to bring the babies who were in the hospital. There was a terrible tuberculosis outbreak, and they brought them here in Riverside Park so the babies could have fresh air. And then they raised enough money so this building was constructed. Recently, the building has gone a major overhaul. They put it back to its original historic standards. Inside, it's beautiful. I'm going to be teaching mindfulness workshops inside. It's amazing. It's an amazing place. But look around, too, because in a month, this is going to be all green. We're in the middle of a park, so there will be nature walks, and there will be community meditations offered freely so people can come together and share peace. What's great about this is we're going to have different meditators, different people who will lead meditation or prayer. I'm working with a group of interfaith women. So this isn't just, one religion, one meditation style. We're going to really draw the community in to create mental wellness for all. It's all about creating inner peace, just turning inside and finding the strengths you already have. Imagine if you start with inner peace and spread it out to your neighbors, your friends, your family, it's just ultimately going to happen that world peace begins in Wichita. Hey, thanks for going on my tour of Wichita with me, fellow mindfulness teachers, and just visiting parts of my own backyard where it's about sharing and generosity and just sharing our blessings. And remember, Wichita, we're coming from the heart, in the heart of the heartland. And for you, maybe you are inspired to look in your backyard and find opportunities where you can make a difference. As they say, be the change you want to see in the world. Thanks again.
Well, Connie, thank you. That's such an inspirational video. And such
Thanks.
such a wonderful view of your life in Wichita and the work you're doing in the community. I want to come back to that in a little bit, the community-based focus. I first want to go back to prior to joining us in Navigating Life's Challenge. Something must have happened either in your childhood or in your corporate work to cause some kind of shift towards opening of the heart. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit towards that, going as far back or starting with the corporate job in whatever way that became known that something was shifting.
Yeah, and something did shift. I mean, I was really kind of at the bottom of the bottom. And I spent 18 years as a pharmaceutical rep and a corporate trainer with a company and, struggling with a mental health diagnosis and then keeping up with everything that was going on in my life at the time. And it was just kind of juggling a lot of the things that people juggle. And I had aging parents whose health was declining. I had young children. I had a marriage that was a little bit, shaky. I had lots of travel and quotas and, on and on, a litany of things that we do have. And the real thing is, on the outside, I looked terrific. It looked like everything was going my way, had all the, notions of success, houses, cars, clothes, travel. But, on the inside, I was so empty and just really drowning. And it wasn't until it was 2009, I had the biggest episode that I had had. I'd been hospitalized before, but this time I was in Dallas, Texas at a national sales meeting. So it was a doozy. And I spent a week in Dallas and then a week hospitalized back in Wichita. But it was also very, very much revealing at that time that this is not it. You need to do something. And, I had been under medicated. I'd been over medicated. I'd been without medication. Ooh, that's scary. And also hospitalized. But it was in 2009 that I said, I'm going to look inside and I'm going to read everything I can about having bipolar, having that diagnosis. And then I'm going to really go inside and look at, what is it that stresses me and what brings me joy. So it was that research, that experiment of Connie Porazka, really doing me honestly, that I started to kind of, I'd say, come out of it and rediscover, who I was before working so hard and always being outwardly focused. So it was that turning inward. And I just continued to meditate and to, kind of help with my psychiatrist. I was very much participating in my care. And she's a great doctor, and she's still my doctor since 2009. But, I was very active then. Before, I think it's easy in life when you have so many other things going on just to let some things go and be passive about, maybe our self-care, about our own well-being when we're caring for so many others. So I did the shift then, turning inward.
Thank you. And then somewhere along the line, you discovered meditation and mindfulness. Was that before navigating life's challenges?
It was before. So, in 2009, doing my exploration and reading and finding ways to relax, to de-stress, I, happened upon mindfulness. So for a lot of years, it was kind of a hit and miss doing my own self-study and own meditations. And it was probably 2014 that I was thinking, there's really something to this. This makes a lot of sense. And I want to pursue it more from a professional standpoint, in that sitting in on a class, discovering life, navigating life's challenges. And I was interested if this might be a path for me to share it. So I was just putting those things together. And in my research, I called UCSD, University of California, San Diego, and Allan answered the phone. And I started out with really stating all the things I'm not. Allan, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I'm very interested in this. And Allan's question to me, and I think you remember, Allan, that you said, well, do you have the heart for this work? And so he started, he rang my heart right then. And my first class was 2015. I attended Navigating Life's Challenges. And it was a full week long of training, and it really filled up the raggedy, the hollow spaces. I could feel them, just expand. I could feel my heart expand to cover some of those things that my life was just so outer directed before. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. So it's a journey. And on that journey, you went back to Wichita, and the slogan was in the video that peace begins in Wichita. And I recall you kind of landed on that. Like, here we are, we're in our community. And this is where I'd like to put my focus, which is unusual in this time where so many teachers and so many of us, now that Zoom is available, are looking at scaling up on a global level. And you stayed right at home. right with Wichita initially, and peace beginning in Wichita. So what led you to that discovery that that's where you would stay, that's where you really wanted to work?
Well, and I decided it very early, I've got to say too, in that I was focused on micro mindfulness. So coming back to Wichita and practicing here, again, we were 530,000 people. A lot of those people are struggling, with their own issue. There's enough struggling for, everybody to help out here. But I like the idea that, we know people's names in the Midwest, and that we do know somebody who knows somebody, and it creates such a wonderful web of people. And the helpfulness, I'm at that point where I left corporate life in 2016 and started my own company. And it's been, it has been a roller coaster ride. And I've, questioned myself along the way, am I doing the right thing? But again, when I turn that, question inside, it's yes, because I can't imagine doing anything else. It's so important to my life and keeping me healthy. This is what I'm meant to do. And doing it in Wichita, this is where I live, it's where I work, and it's where I have, most of my really good friendships. So that's why I'm in Wichita.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, the work from your heart into the heart of your community is rippling out into the world, even through this video. We don't know the souls that you'll touch with this. And I know that a recent focus of your work has been around looking at mental health issues in the community, and to some degree, you've been called to that to a large degree, to maybe an unspeakable degree. You've been called to that most recently, and I'm wondering if it is speakable.
Yes, it is. And, having a mental illness, having a diagnosis of bipolar, there's a very strong genetic component. And both of my children, have bipolar. And it's important to point out, right here that, a diagnosis of bipolar, my bipolar is different than each child's bipolar, who are different, from each other. So we're each so individual. In 2020, my son, Tad, 31 years old, he struggled with really heavy depression a lot of his life. He really did. And he was such an exceptional being. He worked in healthcare, and he would show up. He helped so many people when, he was struggling himself. We had the opportunity, and I say we, Zoe, my daughter, and Patrick, his father, we saw the very, very best of him. We did for the last year. But in July of 2020, he took his life. And, it's, a lot of grieving when you have a child who has a mental illness or an addiction. I've got to say, a lot of grieving goes on before that. So, doctor's appointments and his hospitalizations and his, his very, very bad times, we all grieved those as well. What I most admire of him is he was such a big picture thinker, even as a young child. So he was never kind of caught up in his own story, his own narrative. He was always looking at the bigger picture. So our last conversations together, he was talking about humanity. He was talking about COVID, and he was really fixed on what needs to be done. He left journals and notebooks, and, there's a different knowledge of somebody after they pass. But one of the biggest things that he was working on in his notebook is how to move from his intellectual mind to his heart. So that really put a stamp on what I'm doing in my life and why it's so important. And just like Tad, to not be caught up in my own narrative of loss, because, where I live in Wichita, if you're facing the building, to my right and to my left, in the last 4 months, 2 other men under age 30 have taken their lives. And I've timed it on a bike ride from where they lived. And it's total 5-minute bike ride.
Yeah.
That, this is, mental illness it's a bigger epidemic really than COVID. And, you can look at suicide, depression, anxiety, all the things that have, those are all kind of, I view them as symptoms of what's going on. It's kind of like the downstream, upstream analogy. So all of those things that have a diagnosis, or worse, the things that don't have a diagnosis, but they're there, just a kind of constant overall sadness, anger, and loneliness. But I view the worst is really just being numb. And so many people are numb right now. We're bombarded with the craziness and the chaos going on. So thank you for allowing me to share about TAD. And, that is, why I'm doing what I do.
Well, thank you for being open to share it, Connie. And I know our hearts go out to you and your daughter, Zoe, who I also know. Please say hi to her for me. So the influence of this is rippling through you and in turn rippling into the community you're working with in Wichita. Tell me a little bit about the community focus in terms of how you've developed it, the inroads you've made, the influence you have, let's say, and the frame of how other teachers who may want to work closer to home or who are working closer to home can learn from your experience.
Yeah, I would say, before just getting into mindfulness here in Wichita and starting my own company, being from corporate, you think, oh, I've got to, do this, and I've got to go about it the business way and, check all the dots. And I volunteered for 5 years at this group, 1 Million Cups. And so we meet every Wednesday, and somebody tells the story of, their passion about their business for 6 minutes. And then the community, ask questions, offer support. So community is so important here in Wichita. I've really stressed that if you want to make it here, if you want to do something, you can, because, the connections of meeting people. So I just started, I think, in corporate life and pharmaceuticals, it was a lot of travel, and it was so much that I didn't have community connections. And, just busy doing, everything else, making a living. So it was really when I started my own company that I realized, oh, there are all these other things going on and really slowed down my life. So corporate also gave me, some good background skills in that I really like to do presentations in front of groups. I was in sales, so presentations is part of what I do and feel comfortable with. And just more people that, I met, it just snowballed and just led from one thing to another, so that I became, mostly referrals. That when I do business or organization types of trainings, it's that way. But I do community focused, work that isn't enumerated, but it's so, so important. One of the very first presentations that I gave, Allan, I gave the presentation. I was so proud, here I'm talking about mindfulness. And I talked about, just what I said about going inside and finding out about me. So at the end, the Q&As, a woman raised her hand. She goes, how did you know to do that? And I said, how did I know to do what? She goes, to go inside. And, that is a question. We're mindfulness teachers. So we think that that's sort of an automatic, that people know how to reflect and contemplate and, even just to be quiet, and, they don't. So I've really worked on making mindfulness very approachable and simple and easy to use. So I would say,
Yeah.
so let me back up and just add something.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I am an MBSR certified teacher. So that is very important to me too. And, when I'm teaching MBSR, I am, representing that. And I've been able to teach at, banks and healthcare organizations and just individual classes. But, when I'm not teaching MBSR, I'm teaching joy and peace. So
Yeah. I found you always to be teaching joy and peace. That's just your makeup.
it is.
And this community focus has kind of turned with Tad's passing and what you're seeing around you in terms of mental health to a direction that you described to me a little while back of going door to door and helping to promote a check-in towards people's mental health. You want to speak towards that? I think it's brilliant.
Well, okay, it's not really, I'm not Little Red Riding Hood with the cloak and going door to door so much, but it maybe that would work. But we do have, there's a lot of heart things that are also going on besides what I'm doing. And a couple of the standout leaders, one woman is a city commissioner, county commissioner, and her, emphasis is mental illness and also homelessness. So I've been able to do some things, with her, some initiatives. And then the city councilwoman, I've done things for the city of Wichita. I'm going back to do some projects with KU Med, and that's the med school here in Wichita. I had taught MBSR to the resident physicians during the time of COVID because stress was so high. But I am going back now with medical students in mind, but also doctors that I'd met before. We have talked about, how important a check-in is for people. They go to a doctor's visit once a year. They go to the dentist once a year. Mental health can sometimes just be avoided. I'm a part of it. And just that people, they say the stigma is relaxing about mental illness. And, while that may be true, I know that in my time when I was struggling corporate, and I know Tad's story, and I know the other two young men's parents said, we couldn't tell anything was wrong. They didn't, on the outside, nothing looked wrong. They were acting okay. But, I think for people who have a mental illness, there is, we don't know how to ask for help. And a lot of people fall into that. And, I know when I was struggling, my awareness was dialed down to almost nothing. So mindfulness has really helped me to turn up that dial to increase self-awareness. And, I hope that other people can find their way of, increasing self-awareness. Mindfulness isn't, a panacea for everybody because it's just not. You don't want to sell it that way, and you don't want to sell it at all. But, just sitting quiet can do a lot, and maybe doing sports when you have an excess of energy, but just working with people in the city to find out what can we do here, because it's, it really is past the point of doing an initiative and putting it all in a binder so the binder sits on the shelf. This is the showdown. This is where, we have to do something.
And do I understand that something to be in the form of a simple, mindful check-in in some way, mental health check-in that could be distributed and people could use in some way?
Yeah, what we're talking about is, because I have connections, everybody has a connection somewhere. So the woman who is a Sedgwick County commissioner, her connections are with the county. So ComCare is the crisis and intervention mental health, agency there. So it's looking at, doing some mindfulness classes. I've done them in the past there for the providers, for the people who are there.
Mm-hmm.
But, ComCare is kind of treating people who, crisis and intervention, that's been the model for so long with mental illness. So it's looking more upstream and, meeting people just when they're in a normal, a normal check-in, a normal medical appointment, getting more information about their medical health, also
Mhm.
working at the school systems where teachers and coaches and people at those points could have a discussion. And, we've talked about maybe it's also helping people build a toolbox, a little toolkit that they can go to in times of distress.
Mhm.
I see it from the point of mindfulness is I teach a very, very simple, simple meditations. And if you repeat them, those are your, kind of life preserver. Those are your go-tos. So when you are overwhelmed, when you're on the ledge, you could go to that for help. And I tell people, people say, oh, there's so much on YouTube and there's, this resource and that. And I say, yes, isn't that great? That is so wonderful that we have all those things available. But you also need, meditations in your pocket that what if the lights go out? What if the internet doesn't work? And what if it's dark? That you can go inside and realize I have everything I already need. I have my breath. I have my heart. So I'm big on that.
Thank you, Connie. So a holistic approach in a number of different areas to kind of get an overview of one's health, mental and physical, in different settings, different ways. Okay, let's see how it evolves. Yeah. So with all that you're doing in the community, between mindful entrepreneurship, MBSR programs, working with the university and the medical school and mental health, where do you see yourself moving? Is there one thing that's really lighting a fire in your heart that you might have, a choice if you could jump into all that and take one thing out?
Sure. And it's really, you make it sound like I'm so busy. I'm not that busy.
I'm
And I
happy
think
to hear that. Yeah.
no, and I think that's important because in
Yeah.
corporate life, it was constant activity, go, 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 go. So, take a breath in, Alan, I will too. Mindfulness is just being very intentional. And, I'm focused on the action. So I don't spread myself too thin. My heart, there are only three things I am interested in right now. And the first one is mental wellness. So looking more at prevention and maintenance. What is good mental health? Number two, mindfulness. I look at growing mindfulness in Wichita and doing what I can to help grow other mindfulness teachers. So that, and then three is community. So when you realize that I'm not going out of those three things and I'm only doing small, it's a small little world that I participate in, but it's where I can have action. I changed my business cards recently, Alan. So I want to share that with the group.
Please.
Okay, get ready. I think you can see these. Before, my business card was way too busy. Can you see that? Whew, that's a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Then on the back, more stuff.
Okay.
So I changed it and it's been very favorable. The other people who see it, but it has been great for me. And that's what counts here. So get ready. So what do you do? So you're at, you're doing your elevator pitch, you're at some kind of thing. I teach joy and peace. And people look at me and they go, wow, we could use more of that. So then that, that opens to a conversation. And, here's the backside of my card.
Change
I'm a
agent.
change agent. Because before it was like, I'm a founder, I'm a president, I'm,
Right.
sales rep. It's like, no, I'm a change agent in the three areas that I mentioned to you, Alan.
Yeah.
I want with all my heart's desire to have a positive impact. So,
Yeah.
whew.
Yeah. I think you're having that impact. So
I am.
Wichita is so fortunate to have you. And we are here today.
Oh, you're sweet.
I want to open it up to our community that's gathered here, our participants on Zoom, to see if anybody has any questions We have time for a couple of questions if you wanted to ask Connie anything and participate at this time. Oh, cool. Thank you.
I wonder if I know you probably have lots of different stories or examples of how, and you talked a little bit about it, how you are approaching perhaps different professionals, different businesses that you could be collaborate with, different organizations or people leading those organizations. Maybe you have another example to share.
Let's see. Meaning like, Cooley, what groups that I attend or?
Yes, when you go to them to talk about promoting mental health or mindfulness.
Oh, okay. So because I've been here for 6 years, I've planted a lot of seeds in those 6 years. And again, knowing somebody who knows somebody, one thing that's been good is I'm invited to do kind of keynote talks over lunchtimes to different groups. And I really use that as a kind of a keynote workshop where people, could learn a couple, mini things to take with them. So that has been really good. And it's opened the door that I'm contacted by people after that who are interested in maybe who are interested in doing some trainings for their employees. So that has been helpful. And I don't, because I've tightened my focus in, mental wellness, and we can all benefit from that. So that is, stronger what I do. And then community, a lot of the community things I do, as I mentioned, they're not remunerated, but it leads to other things too. And I'll mention that I had to get my mind off, what was paying and what wasn't paying, because I was, coming from a corporate background and how everything is measured sales and money. And you can't take that yardstick out into the mindfulness world. It grows organically. It grows without putting too much focus on it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and then just finding people in the community that, wow, I admire their work. So the Sedgwick County Commissioner who's doing things, in mental illness, in homelessness, partnering up with her and saying, what can I do here? I like what you're doing. So a lot of those types of relationships have formed. And even I'll mention this one, Cooley, because I love this. The city commissioner for my district, her mom and dad live in the area, and I know her and I helped her campaign. But one of the things that, goes on in Wichita, it's just that cohesiveness in that she put little wading pools at different points, around our city with water in it. So we have like an army of people who check it. And it's like, do we need to throw more ice in there? What do we need? So it's these small, really grassroots initiatives that I find is very kind of unique, maybe to Wichita, or maybe you're doing it in your cities too, and you just haven't told me yet. But I like that. So yeah, I'm not spreading myself too thin, but just, trying to make an impact in the areas that interest me the most.
Thank you, Cooley. Thank you, Connie. Yeah. Okay, Simona.
I just want to comment, Connie, this has been so beautiful. I just love how you're approaching it from the joy and peace side of things, because so often, the focus is on reduced stress and anxiety, which creating more joy and peace within naturally leads to that, right? It's like you can't have joy and be stressed at the same time. So I'm wondering, like, if like when you approach people from more of the MBSR angle, talking about the stress reduction aspect versus when you approach them from creating and cultivating joy, what are the different reactions, or like, is there a general question or theme that comes up? Like maybe when you focus on the joy part, people are like, man, I wish I could feel joy, or what do they say versus when you talk more about the stress reduction part?
Simona, very good questions. Thank you. And, it's right that you can't be stressed and have joy. So while I might lead in a business meeting with joy and peace, trust that I have a barrage of statistics and slides and all that meaty stuff that people want to see as well. So when I talk about reductions in anxiety and depression, it's not anecdotal. We have so much very strong science that backs that. But I lead with joy and peace, because if you have more joy and peace in a workplace, in an organization, and just that, and joy and peace, it is kind of separate than MBSR. My MBSR in Wichita has the tone of joy and peace because I have that vibe. But again, I have all the science to back me, Simona, and, I bring it out and, I followed the MBSR curriculum. So thank you.
I think it's all like, it fits in so beautifully, it's like joy. When you are in the present moment, mindfulness is joy expressed once we see everything that's happening within our minds. And so I'm really excited about what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much for your input. Say too that joy, I have my own kind of private definition, Simona, from my life. And I just say that joy is just that ability to be present, to be happy with whatever comes up, and that's, the human heart is just so big and so vast that it can hold it all. It can hold joy and sorrow and hopefulness, it's all right there, and less stress, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Simona. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Well, much joy and peace for you, and continued best wishes for bringing your work into community in Wichita, Kansas. And thanks for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week for our next Views from the Field session. Wishing you all much clarity and happiness with an open heart and love. So everybody take good care. And thanks again, Connie. What a pleasure.
Thank you, Allan. Thanks, everybody.
Click down below to join our Mindfulness Teacher Community Network on Facebook, where you are invited to post and share. Also, subscribe to Sing to the Mountain Studio. Ring the bell so you don't miss out on future recordings.